Hi there and welcome to Miss Daisy Patterns. Today I'm going to be making this cute sock dog. Right, so let's get to it. Now what you're going to need is one stripy sock, some craft filler, an ear pattern which is linked below, thread, embroidery thread, some pieces of felt, again the patterns for this is linked below, some more red felt, again pattern linked below, scissors, tailor chalk pencil, a doll sculpting needle, and a regular needle. Now the size of the needle and everything else is all listed below in the description box. Right, so first of all what we're going to start with is the tailor chalk pencil, scissors, needle and thread, and the stripy sock. So turning the sock inside out, just like I'm doing here, and then if you position it just like I have here on the board, that part I was pointed to is actually going to be the nose, and then that's going to be the top of the head. So taking the pencil, if you just draw a circular head that lines up basically with the back of the straight section of the dog. So that's that. And then what you're going to do next is we're going to backstitch that. As you see yourself, it's not too far up from the nose. Right, so you just backstitch that into position. So right, and I like to put a few stitches in the same position just to make sure that it's nice and securely sewn. Right, now next thing we need to do is we just need to cut off the excess sock material, but just leave that to the side for the moment because we're going to be using that to cut the ear out of. Right, so next step then is just to open the sock up flat so the heel is actually facing up towards you, and at this point now you can just remove the bottom band. So if you just cut that band off, again you won't need this, so you can just leave it to the side. Right, so the next thing to do once that is in position is we need to create the legs. So again I'm going to, if you just mark out the legs just like that. Now if it lies in this case the tailor chalk pencil isn't quite strong enough for you to see, I went over it a few times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you can't see it, you can also use a marker. Right, so I'm just going to use a marker to just go back over the tailor chalk section, just so as I can definitely see where I'm sewing, and just position those legs in. Right, so that's the legs there. Now we're just going to backstitch those. So again we've backstitched the two legs and leave the space in between the two legs unsewn. So backstitch in leg one. And then finishing at the top of the leg. You're going to leave that space just between there, and then backstitching the second leg. So that's the second leg. Right, so just snip that off. And then we're just going to trim off any of the excess sock material. So just trim off around the legs there, that's perfect. And then cutting up in between them. Obviously we've left that space in between the legs because that's how we're going to turn the sock dog right way out. And so you don't need any of that, so you can put that to the side. And that's the space there that we're going to turn it out. Right, so I'd like to pop it in from the top of the head, push it all the way down through, and then pop out the two legs, which makes it pretty straightforward. And then just push out the legs till you get the shape right. Great, so that's that. Now this is the bit where the toe that we cut off, if you get the pattern and pin it in place, pin it in place, because you want to cut out 2 of these. So let's just pin in place and cut out. And while we're at it here, the section that is just that little triangular section that I've just cut off there, save that, because that is going to be for the tail. Right, okay. And with regard to the ears are actually going to be folded over in half, so that is what ear 1 is going to look like, and then ear 2. But we're going to be sewing those in a minute. Right, so before we move on to the ears and the eyes and the tail and everything, we need to stuff the dog, and we're going to do that with craft filler. Now I find it takes a lot of craft filler, so just keep stuffing until you get the shape right. Make sure to fill out that nose, because he's got a great big doggy nose on him, and the legs. Right, so that's that pretty stuffed. So then to finish off the body, you just need to whip stitch the section between the legs closed. So that's the body shape completely sealed off. Now for the next section, what we're going to do is we're going to do a running stitch, and this is to create a definition between the head and the body. So if you do a few back stitches to hold the thread in position, and then following the line, which will bring it around the neck, it'll go underneath the base, which underneath the heel, which will create the nose. You can do a running stitch all the way around, right, and then pull it. So you're actually sculpting the shape of the dog's head and creating a definition between the head and the body. Right, once you've got it nice and tightly pulled, if you do a few stitches over each other, a few back stitches over each other, just to secure it, and that's the shape there. So you can snip that off. Right, and then this is where we're going to be using the doll sculpting needle, because what we're going to do is we're going to create the space where the eyes actually sit just and the nose protrudes out. So if you go in from the base of the neck, the back of the base of the neck, I'll run the thread through a few times just to secure it and anchor the thread in place, because you're going to be giving it a good tight pull, and you work through there and up to where the eye is going to be, just above the nose. Okay, you'll see now if I push it in, you go back in, just go over about a centimetre, go back in, work it all the way down and pull tight, and you see it actually forms the first eye. Well, it's actually the eye space that it fits into. And then moving over, position the second eye. And this is why you need the doll sculpting needle, because the shorter needle won't be able to go through the entire space of the head. Right, so you just pull that tight there, and you can see that's it. So the nose actually now starts to pop out, and the position of the eyes are in place. Right, that's where the nose and the eyes are going to be, and then in order just to secure in place, do a couple of stitches, back stitches on top of each other. That's it. Great, and then snip off the thread. So that's that structure in place. Right. Now with the bow and the collar, if you sew the bow onto the center of the collar, just like I have here, then place the collar around the dog's neck, so you're covering over the stitching, really is what you're doing. And then just stitch the back in position. Now again, the pattern for all of these extra pieces, the bow, the collar, the nose and the eyes, are all available and linked in the description box below. Right, so that's that in place. Now the next thing that I want to do is create the arms. So working from the collar down, you're just going to basically soft sculpt the arms into position. And this is perfectly done with a regular sewing needle. And so back stitch it all the way down to the length that you think the arm should be, and then back stitch all the way back up and finish off. Right, and then just repeat that on the other arm. Right, so that's the arms done. Right, so now we have the ears. That's the top tail, the section I was saying for the I mentioned earlier for the tail. So we keep the tail, the ears, the eyes and the nose. Right, now to stitch the ears together, if you fold the fabric just like that, right side to right side, and then do a running stitch all the way around. Running stitch all the way around, just to secure them together. Then repeat that on the other ear and again on the tail. So again, the tail is going to be a little bit narrower. So what you want to do here is, again, on this one I'm doing a back stitch because it's so small, the piece. So you back stitch it all the way down. And snip off any excess sock material that you don't need. Right, so if you turn the ears right side out. Now the ears are pretty straightforward at turning right side out because they're quite big, but with regard to the tail, you may need a chopstick or even a pencil. You could use the base of the tailor chalk pencil just to pop the tail at the top. So that's ear one done. And I see I've just popped in the inside of it so it has a nice edge on it. Repeat that on the second ear, and then this is the tail. Right, so this is where, yeah, exactly, chopstick, base, a pencil, anything like that, just to pop out the very tip of the tail. So that's the tail sorted. Right, now we just need to attach everything onto the dog. Now with regard to the eyes, if you whip stitch applique the pupil onto the white of the eye. Now every single stitch in this is linked below if you need instructions on how to do them. So I've left all the links in the description box. So that's one done. Repeat that on the second eye, and then what we want to do is position the eyes in place, and you'll see exactly they actually just sit on the hollow that the soft sculpting has done, and that's the nose then. Right, so once you've everything positioned, you can start with the nose and just whip stitch applique the nose onto the front of the dog. So that's the nose in position. And the next thing to do is to put the eyes in. So if you just, depending on how much thread you have, you could actually just pop the needle through there so you don't need to rethread. And whip stitch applique the next eye on. Well, the next section of the eye on. So that's eye one going on. once that's in position, then attach the second eye. Again, if you have enough thread, you could just pop it through. Okay, that's the second eye on, just snip off the thread. So it's pretty straightforward. That's the two eyes and the nose in position. Right, so what we want to do now is we want to give the dog a mouth, and we're going to put in sort of the definition of the pupils. So finding the center of the base of the nose. If you work in a long back stitch, so a long back stitch, just straight, so it's literally nose pops down from the nose, and then we're going to work a little line off to the left and the right. So that's 3 long back stitches, and then to join them together I'm just stitching the thread around the back stitches, so it creates a nice smooth line. And then working a back stitch off to the left, well, 2 back stitches off to the left and 2 back stitches off to the right. That just fills in the dog's mouth. And again, you can stitch the thread around the line of back stitching. I find it creates more definition and it makes for a smoother line. Right. So that's the mouth in position. And then for the eyes, we're just going to do a simple satin stitch, and it's going to be a tiny weeny little circle. So you've got a tiny circle, right, and if you work just a few stitches right next to each other, satin stitch, and then crossing back over those again, so you create the tiny little pupils, and repeat that on the other eye. So that's that done. And then the last things to do is to put on the ears and the tail. Now if you whip stitch the top of the ears together so as that you have a nice smooth line, and then position them where you want to be, where you want them. I kind of look to the side of the head, and then I look to the top of the head, and I liked how they looked at the top of the head. And I've the curved section to the front and the straight section to the back. So then just whip stitching that into position. So that's ear 1 on. Repeat that on the second ear, and then it's just the tail. So that's the tail, it's pretty much where it's going to pop onto. So with regards to the tail, you're just going to pop a piece of the fabric in on top of itself, so it's inside, so you're just shoving it inside. So you have a nice smooth line of fabric to sew. And it also gives a bit of width to the base of the tail. So you pop that on there. Right. And then whip stitch that into position. Perfect. So that is the little sock dog completed.